While it would be opportune for both of us to be talking about Jimmy Kimmel's censorship and Bob Vila and Kneecap censorship, we are going to go back to where things were before our bickering between us. And we're actually going to be talking about a subject that we were quite hesitant to do for a long time because we're both men, which doesn't help out with optics. But here it is. This is a BBSC VMPAA episode about rape, sexual violence, which unfortunately affects many people worldwide, even men included. And it's one of those topics that we were quite hesitant about doing as a whole because of the taboo of it,
Well, I don't have
disregarding
much to add,
about gender.
and I was basically just doubtful about how much I could really add to the subject. But all in all, I mean, he, like I say, run a well drive a lot of issues, and this is when it comes to film censorship or film ratings, this is a big one. So yeah, um, may as well.
It is the by far and large, for at least the British censors, the issue that Jerry tends to get the most scrutiny. You don't, because you can even show films with regular scenes of violence and even full nudity, even as low as you. But when it comes to sex assault and rape and stuff like that, it usually tends to be capped off at 15 and 18. Although some exceptions to the
especially
rule.
more recent, especially more recently.
Well, definitely, but even back then, I still said no, 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 you can't do that. As we've seen with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which somehow managed to slip
Hmm.
in with a PG, despite having a scene where Alan Rickman is saying, "I can't get it up with all this rack and trying to have his way with uh, Maid Marian." It's been a long time since I've
Uh,
seen it, but that's an early example of a film that should never have been a PG, especially with a scene like that.
well, to be honest, it was only PG after multiple cuts were made, even back then. I don't know if that made it through in the PG rating, but
It did. In the
considering,
cinema cut, I was told by Gavin Selkeld, they let that scene slip in, but they cut in
oh yeah,
the hand cutting scene in the beginning, and then, well, fuck me, he did that.
yeah,
Christian
well,
Slater
God, yeah,
scene.
but that was all that's cut out of like the theatrical version, but then the videos were like just mutilated further. I mean, Furman said his one regret was giving that film a PG rating, which makes me ask a lot of questions about like what, considering all the other decisions he'd made. But that's off topic. So, moving forward,
Well, that for many people, is probably an early example because usually at the lower categories, anything that involves sexual violence, assault, or rape is very verboten. You just don't see it. You don't even hear it. Now, with that being said, however, some things slip up. I know Jurassic Park had that one scene where he's talking about the rape of mankind. This is not in a sort of sexual violence sense. He means it like destruction, but still, that word alone
like
can be quite triggering.
I guess I didn't really think about stuff back then, to be honest.
Even Edward
Just by the use
Scissorhands.
of a word.
Well, context is everything. I know the way Jeff Goldblum said it, but I know, that word alone scares women off entirely. But I'm sure there's many women who like Jurassic Park, but they probably were scared by it as kids because of the dinosaurs. But that's called me sort of going a bit off scale here. Even Edward Scissorhands, and I remember seeing that film as a child. That could have been interpreted as inverted sexual assault, as that beautiful ginger lady was trying to have her way with Edward in a salon. That I didn't know how to respond to that, but I didn't interpret it as sexual assault because it was a woman doing it to a man. It's like a MILF Cougar scenario. But I guess in that respect, he wasn't appreciating the seduction he was threatened by and walked out of the salon. I'm sure you remember that scene.
I've only seen the film once actually, and to be honest, that scene isn't really sticking in my mind. I don't know why. If if I rewatch it again, uh, I'll keep it in mind. But I mean, there are a lot of they're talking about just stuff about played for laughs. Have you seen the film Wedding Crashers?
Yes, I have several years ago, and it has that scene involving what appears to be attempted gay rape of let's have some tickle
That's
time.
no, that's not the one I was on about.
Not the
That's not the
scene
scene I
with the
was on
two
about.
men.
No, 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 no. The scene with Isla Fisher and Vincent Vaughn in the bed.
Please do inform me because it's been a while since I've seen it.
Okay, well, first of all, basically, Vince Vaughn's character wakes up at one point and he finds Isla Fisher's character has tied him to the bed and basically just, oh, baby, I get it from you. I guess I'm not being adventurous enough. I can't remember the exact line she says, but basically, it's like he's really not into it. And yeah, and basically, essentially, she rapes him. And it's not like the film doesn't acknowledge this. He says it like when he wakes up in the morning and he's talking to Owen Wilson. He says, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Ah, soft mattress. Yeah, it could have been soft mattress. Or it could have been the midnight rape or the indoor or, or gay nude art show. That could have contributed to my lack of sleep. And it's like, yeah, it acknowledges that basically it was a rape, but as it's female on male, it's played for laughs.
That does seem to cast a problem a bit because even though it's a use of power and sex without consent, it doesn't. It's not taken as seriously because women generally are viewed as the victim, not the aggressor. Men can be both victim and aggressor, more so
Well, no,
aggressor
but
than anything.
generally speaking, when we think of men being raped, we think by other men. When you think of like,
Exactly.
usually when a lot of people hear about a guy's been raped by women, they go, "Lucky guy." Yeah,
No, it's
dicks.
true. They'll think it like, "Hey, good one, champ. That's my boy." Adam Sandler film that was about statutory rape, and but it was presented as kind of like cool and sexy because the teenage boy gets it on with like the 30-year-old teacher.
But that's the point, Mark. Usually, when they do think of female on male rape, the conditions they usually put down is basically an adult woman basically having, well, what they would describe as sexual relations, but obviously illegal sexual relations with a boy who's under the age, which makes it rape because if they're beneath the age of consent, they can't consent, so it's rape by default. That seems a bit dismissive to be honest, rape by default, but be honest. But basically, kids can't consent, juveniles can't consent, and so any form of sex, or at least any form of sexual relations with them, at least with an adult, is by definition rape.
Of it, I know even if for some films, like you said, for played for laughs, the rape element between two men is played as funny because they view as degenerate homosexuality. Like, ooh, it was they're in prison. He dropped the soap. They
Well,
even
no, I
have
was going to
before
bring that up.
jokes in U and PG content. Like Powerpuff Girls had a sly gay rape joke saying "love is in the air," and the prisoners looking at Mojo Jojo like, hmm.
Well, no, I mean, how many? I mean, yeah, prison rape has always been passed off as a sort of was it sort of just something that happens and is always just laughed off and everything. Like I think it was at the end of a second Fast and Furious film, they tell the bad guy, "Hey, don't drop the soap," and so so yeah, you are right there. I mean, I was going to bring it up myself because the two things that really came to mind were basically female on male rape that's been passed off as laughs, such as in Wedding Crashes, and of course the prison rape and everything, which is always passed off as laughs, just well, I mean, how many films time you got? Just countless films, but the one that came to my mind most of all was basically Too Fast, Too Furious. That's the name of the film.
I remember seeing that Easy Cinema back in the day. I don't remember that particular line from it, but now in
Well, it's very
hindsight,
blink and you miss. It's very
hmm.
again, it's very blink and you miss it. Most people probably don't think about that.
Oh,
I mean, hell, even in an episode of The Simpsons where was it Krusty the Clown and Sideshow Bob are basically arguing each other via telecom meetings or everything, and Sideshow Bob gets an award of some shit. Or I can't remember exactly what the context was. And basically, Krusty says, "Just don't drop that in the shower." So,
oh, well,
as in a Simpsons
oh.
episode, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, again, just something that's just so casually thrown around. But dude, it's rape and sexual assault. It's not funny.
No, that's one of the few areas where people just don't see the humor in it. I don't see the humor, especially when it comes to prison setting. Like that's supposed to be purgatory. That's hell on earth for many people, and be at the mercy of other people who've done wrong themselves behind bars, and they take advantage of you. Then that's a downward spiral. I would rather cut my own throat and kill myself, blood everywhere, than be at the mercy of some like American History X, that has that scene with the other race gang trying to have his way with Edward Norton's character, and you see full nudity, and it's quite violent, and there's blood, and that was an 18 for quite a few years, and then they downgraded it to 15. I'm like, that is one of the most horrible 15 films I have ever seen. And that's not just accounting the racist violence and language that's in it throughout. I don't know if you've seen
Well, I think
American
that's mo
History X.
that yeah, I have. I mean, the context kind of sort of like softens the blow. I mean, I don't know if it really does soften the blow, but it is justified by context at least. But hey ho, I think a lot of the sort of comments made about prison rape is that, oh well, the person's a criminal, they've done a bad thing, everything, therefore they deserve this. It's like, nah, dude. I mean, they've they've been arrested, they're going to prison, and everything. I mean, I really don't think they deserve. Well, no one deserves to be raped. Uh, this is what I've always had the issue with capital punishment because they say, oh, they killed someone, they all deserve to be killed. And it's just, well, hang on a second. If someone's arrested for rape, you don't think that they should be raped in retaliation, do you? Well, I trust you don't. Although some people, fuck if I know.
Well,
Of
I
course,
for one don't know. I don't even
I
wish
mean,
on Donald Trump if he went to prison. I don't wish him to be
well,
buggered. But I just,
no. Well, there we go. But
I
another
don't
thing
wish
I was going
him.
to add, another thought that just came to my mind, and have you? I don't know how much Buffy you've watched.
I just know by the title and one or two clips, but I've never seen a single episode of Buffy or Angel.
Right. Well, I mean, I say you're missing out, but to be honest, I might just like it for nostalgia reasons. But anyway, rape has been addressed in the show quite a bit. There's one time where Spike, this vampire who was originally a bad guy, then later became a good guy, sort of heel face turn or something. But anyway, attempted to assault Buffy or anything, but that wasn't really the one I was focusing right now. I remember there's one episode in season 6 where the main bad guys, who are these bunch of nerds, so it's really hard to explain to someone who's not familiar with the show because it doesn't make a lot. Because outside of context, it's quite hard to explain. Anyway, they start the spell thing where they can like hypnotize people. They say, "Hey, we can get them to be our sex slave," or anything, and then the leader of a trio gets it on his ex-girlfriend and tries to get him to sex slave. However, the spell eventually breaks down. She breaks free. Sorry, breaks free of it, and then she says, "Oh my God, you're about to rape me," or thing. I'm going to go to police and you go to prison, and then you can see what it's like to be raped. I mean, while she's very correct in how what they were planning to do was rape, because again, if they're like, they haven't got all their wits about them, they don't know what they're doing, then obviously they can't consent. So again, rape. I think like dismissively mentioning the prison rape and everything as a sort of like well, passing joke or a glib remark or whatever you want to describe it. Ain't exactly calling it either,
No, no.
or hoping the person that gets arrested gets rape or wishing rape upon someone like what she was doing. That's the main problem.
Well, from what I'm hearing, not only is the weird double standard going on, but also because Buffy was popular with teenagers, I'm sure this
Well,
is
it's a
probably
teenage
a
show.
15 level episode because of that element.
Most Buffy episodes are 15 rated. I think some of the early episodes got away with 12s, or I think they might have only got away with 12s after cuts. I'm not entirely sure, but most episodes were 15 rated.
That sounds about right. I didn't know there was episodes such as this, but it makes sense because the audience demographic is adolescents, probably 14 and up. And this is an issue that affects, that sort of school environment. So even though I don't really have much to say on that, it does make well, it's got me thinking as far as I'm concerned, because that also brings back to early experiences. Because as far as I'm concerned, and this is already sort of open history for anyone who watches our show, first sexual assault content I've seen was through Japanese animation. Everyone knows what the title is. I'm not going to say it, but it was episode 5, and it was a very disturbing scene. You don't see explicit details, but I knew what was happening, and it frightened me off for watching it for weeks. I even saw it at
So,
your place, and you were horrified by it too.
oh yeah, I think I know what you mean. Sorry, I thought you were talking about the Legend of the Overfiend and everything. Because
I
that
didn't see Legend of the Earthling until I was like 29. I saw it quite late.
well, I know I've seen bloody Legend of the Overfiend more than one. Have I seen more than once? Oh fuck it, who cares? Where was I going with this? Yeah, but of course, like, one of the early scenes in it involves like sexual assault of a schoolgirl by a demon disguised as a teacher and everything. And as you imagine, that did get subject to rather heavy cuts here and everything. And it was the NC-17 rated, and it was obviously NC-17 rated in America. And I don't even think that NC-17 rated version was as extreme as the original Japanese version. So make that work well. But good God, sexual assault is a really common occurrence in freaking anime. It is then half, mate.
No, I'm
It
afraid.
doesn't half raise a few questions.
I'm afraid so. They can be quite explicit about it, despite the laws in Japan say you can't show pubic hair or penises. But as far as everything else is concerned, there's no limits, and that's what unsettles me a bit. I mean, I've mentioned about that one particular episode I've shown at your place just to see how you react to it because that traumatized me for years. I don't know, but for me, that was an early experience of seeing something I probably shouldn't have as far as sexual violence content is concerned, even if it is more or less implied. And then about 6 years after I saw that, actually 1 year, I saw 300, and that was not classified 15 on basis of sexual violence, but it might as well have been because it had that scene of Lena Headey's Queen character being raped anally by one of the other guardsmen.
Oh,
That wasn't
by
pleasant to
Dominic
watch.
West. Yeah, well, I think it was like it was basically designed portrayed as actually consensual. Like she was like doing it. He was like consenting in exchange for a favor and everything. I mean, sure, you could say it was coerced and everything, but I don't think, considering she made the decision to do it, it it could be argued that ultimately it isn't rape. I mean, I guess here's me saying it, but I don't know. But I mean, make of that,
Well, that was
make that.
as far as I'm concerned, probably the first full scene I've seen because Watchmen, which I saw a year after, I saw that in the cinema. My first 18, that didn't happen. That was attempted. He was unbuckling his belt and having his way of spreading her legs.
Yeah,
And then that anime
yeah,
I
no, I
always
remember what you
talk
mean.
about doesn't show what's about to happen, but it's obvious what's going on. And then move the clocks back 6 years later, after all the horror stories of Watchmen and Elfin, then came Barsai.
I mean, I've seen that Peter Geddon uh once or well, once or twice and everything. Obviously, I understand the satire of it. I mean, I think a lot of people complaining were basically just missing the point. I remember what was it, a Daily Express or something was was all up in arms about it at one point, and then they were basically doing another sort of editorial right next to it of showing Princess I think of Princess Beatrice or something in a bikini or something like uh yeah, and she was about 13 at the time, and it's just like, dude, not only have you missed the point, you're part of the very thing they're satirizing.
Well, that's the irony of it all. I've heard the same sort of irony mentioned in the biography of sorts called Disgusting Bliss, The Life and Times of Chris Moritz, where they mention, hmm, that was a bit ironic how that was presented, but they didn't complain about that because it was respected media elite who like to make stories that sell headlines. They're the same people who are writing a lot of newspaper headlines about migrants are coming to your neighborhood and raping your daughters and burning stuff, and only 60% of people only speak English in this village. I know I'm getting into sort of another topic there, which is also very dangerous, immigration, but we're going to
Yep.
go into the other dangerous topic that no one dare talk about, regardless of culture, that is rape or sexual violence. But I know early experiences, Brass Eye was a show like Four Lions I refused to watch for years out of fear because of the subject matter, even if all the other episodes of Brass Eye are they're still offensive, but they're not as dangerous of a subject as that one, which we'll call, for the purposes of the broadcast, episode 7, or the special from 2001.
A lot of the times, these people who shout the loudest are always the one. Well, you think, oh, they doth protest too much because they're trying to hide something from themselves.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't really? Even look at the President of the United States. He goes on about certain particular issues, but yeah, he's has incestuous thoughts about his own daughter. We'll never
When
know
he's
what Ivanka will say about that. And he's
and
even raped and sexually assaulted people too, and threatened to grab them by the
let's face
pussy.
it, he's clearly, although we can't hasn't been proven entirely, but I think it's pretty obvious. He's in the Epstein files, and he's basically been in the Epstein's pedo ring. So I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
but the
I mean,
photos
obviously,
are all
or at least
present.
at least it seems that way.
Well, the photos are present, taking sort of buddy shots as far as I'm concerned with that lady who's, I think, the daughter of the Daily Express or the Sun, Robert Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine. And I'm just like, this is all connected. No wonder why he managed to get into office. As long as he said certain things, the public voted for him. None the wiser about the Epstein stuff that would come to haunt him. Even people within his own side are sort of pointing the flag to where, and I could be wrong on this, someone had made a conspiracy theory about Charlie Kirk's assassination being the result of Charlie threatening to out Trump regarding the Epstein scandal.
I don't,
I don't buy
I
it.
don't know about, well, I wouldn't buy that. No, I don't know anything about that. I don't think it's very likely, but it's not really related we're talking about.
But
Um,
even Joe Rogan has flagged it, and he's part of them lot. So
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
I mean,
Oh,
I don't know about any of. Okay, but again, that's a bit off topic and everything. Have you seen The Accused?
it's got Jodie Foster in it. It's got a
Yes.
really graphic scene, even for a film when it was still Furman, and it'll be a lot tough on rape scenes. I've never seen it, but I am aware of that scene.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it particularly graphic, but it is sort of like you make sure you limits what you actually see on screen, and most of it is left to the imagination. You don't actually see it towards the end. And of course, I mean, the whole theme of the subject matter of the film is rape and sexual assault. So of course, it is justified by the narrative. So yeah, I've seen it once. Obviously, it's very progressive. Well, quite progressive at a time, as it of course is very quick to say that basically, you know, she wasn't, she did not deserve it and everything. Everything. They did not, she did not quote unquote bring it upon herself, as loads of rape apologists like to do when they sort of like constantly have a go up rape survivors for basically, well, being raped because apparently, but the men couldn't help it, which is silly. And oh, by the way, I mean, a lot of countries, I mean, such as Saudi Arabia, uh, a woman gets gets lashed or caned or anything because if they get raped for committing adultery. It's just like, dude, the fuck? But no, I mean, to be fair, I've only seen it once. I can't remember much what happens, but basically, it is just a good look into how just well, society just uh does just victim blame the survivors of rape, and of course, in this case, because she's quite she's a work, I think she's like a working class girl or anything, uh, and the the perps or the accused are like typical bunch of frat boys who are quite come from affluent backgrounds. So of course they get the impression that they can just get away with it. And of course that a lot of it's from a point of view of the prosecutor who's doing what she can to make sure they all get sent down. But of course it is sort of an uphill battle because of a power imbalance.
This probably would be a film that I would be more than happy to see. I it is tough watching from what I'm told, but I
Well,
know
again, you don't
given
actually
its time frame,
the controversial scene isn't exactly towards the end. I mean, most of it just is picking up after the aftermath of the whole situation, and so you're just sort of taking it from yeah, and just sort of like find the facts and everything and find out what went on. Then at the end, they show you what happened. It's very obvious she was innocent. That, as it should be obvious from the get go, that she was innocent. They're all completely and utterly in the wrong, and well, yeah, the wrong uns all go down. Which is so, yeah, justice gets served ultimately, but obviously it's Hollywood, so of course they would.
well, you have to polish the edges for a mainstream audience. Unlike something, let's say, like Irreversible, which I saw weirdly enough in cinemas in the Cinémathèque Nice. That was one of the best cinema experiences I've ever had because of its highly controversial nature. And it's also, unfortunately, very infamous for a 9-minute rape scene that's filmed all in one shot. And you see brutal kicking, beating, and anal penetration, although we don't see explicit detail of genital content, but it's obvious what's going on. It's very graphic, prolonged, and disturbing, as it should be. No woman walked out at the screening that I was, and I thought that would happen because of how shocking it was and full on. But there you go. I know it got a lot of trouble for that scene when it came out, and there were walkouts at the Cannes Film Festival. I don't know if it happened in the UK where people walked out of screenings or like women had signs saying "protest this rape film," but that was the case, and they managed to get it uncut after several consultations with psychiatrists at the BBFC and the director watching it in several viewings.
Yeah, like I say, I have not seen in Irreversible, but it's one of those ones I want to see, but I can't find it anywhere. I have heard about the is a prolonged rape scene, but it's mostly as a means of showing the audience just how horrifying rape and sexual assault actually are. So, I mean, it's again the whole concept of justified by context comes into play.
Well, it does, but I know for some people, even just the slight mention of it or the slight suggestion can still be quite triggering for a lot of people, as is scenes that involve discriminatory language or behavior based on race or sexual orientation. There's people who won't even watch it chapter 2 because it has that scene where two gay people being brutally kicked and beaten at a theme park, or in my case, I couldn't handle the movie Holes that well. And that was a PG film because it had some
Wait,
scenes of
which?
racist violence.
Sorry, Mark. Before holes, which film were you referring to again?
The prior one was It Chapter 2. You
Oh,
remember
I
that
did
scene where
think
the
that's what
two
it's about.
gay men
Yeah,
were
yeah,
beaten and kicked?
yes, yeah. I remember. I mean, I'd read the book beforehand, so I knew it was actually true to the book and everything. Mm. Um, so yeah, I think it was meant to be a. Then again, I can't. The book dates back to 1985,
Well, that would have been very forward
So I can't.
thinking for back then.
Mm. Well, yeah, I
Um,
mean, obviously it's like condemning of homophobia and everything, but a lot of people find it quite the a lot of people find it quite traumatizing. And admittedly, I will. No, I suppose so. Obviously, not being gay myself, I wouldn't really. I wouldn't know where to don't have much of a dog in a fight in that one. But nevertheless, uh, yeah. I mean, I guess it's just being true to the book and everything.
well, I'm just sort of bringing it as a example of one thing I've noticed over the years, and this is probably because I am left wing. It's usually the things that tend to get under people's skin a bit is when it starts having a sort of personal dimension to it. It's one thing to show people being brutally shot and stabbed and having their heads scalped, but it's one thing where the violence is personalized. I think the reason why rape scenes, as is scenes where there's violence towards certain ethnic and racial groups or people of LGBT persuasion, that is triggering for a lot of people because it's personalized. It's not just for thrills, like watching John Wick shoot people or Terrify the Clown just ripping people's brains out. There's a personal dimension, and that's what scares people. And then also, because rape involves sexual behavior, that's even more of a red flag because sex has always been taboo, no matter where you go, to varying levels. But with that being said, however, the CBFC, Indian equivalent of BBFC, and several other censor groups within South and East Asia, they tend to have a bit more relaxed approach towards sexual violence content than we do. And I find that quite
Yeah.
troublesome. Like, these are very conservative countries. Ain't no mistake. And they permit that, but they won't permit a sex scene. I just don't get it. But thankfully,
No,
I talked
no.
with Joseph
Unfortunately,
about.
unfortunately, well, I would say I get it, but I mean, this is very, very sort of very sort of half of a course with like rather uh, conservative societies. Yeah, like consensual sex seems to basically rub them the wrong way, rather than non-consensual sex, right? I.e., rape and sexual assault. So yeah, so yeah. I mean, just want to just put that into context.
Well, thankfully for doing so. I can't speak for a lot of Bollywood films because I've never seen one. And don't count Monkey Man as one because that was made sort of with Hollywood money. I know they had
Well,
to cut the rape scenes and keep it implied for the most part with that film. So we don't know exactly what was in the original cut, but I could presume it was quite explosive. Plus the politics they had to censor a little bit of because some of it was too critical of Modi and the Hindutva BJP party. But that's another story. Talk to Joseph Ingham. He knows a lot about Bollywood cinema. That's sort of his field of expertise. But I know with films from around the world, Japan seems to have a bit of a strange relationship with sexual assault and violence content. To where they had
yeah,
to
it
use
does.
that sort of weird tentacle metaphor because tentacles almost are phallic. They're like penises, as a means to get away with certain stuff. Because they can't show pubic hair or genital nudity, which I find quite strange. Because as far as I'm concerned, that too weird, even for me. Because I've done a song that was called "Alien from the Darkness," which is a reference to a particular hentai title that I'm also a fan of. Even that was a bit nightmarish for even me, and I only got into it because it was an adult animation, and I am always been curious by taboos. I don't support the misogyny behind it all. I would like to make that clear for everyone. You might think, well, he made a song based on that, so he's endorsing it. But then again, you could say people who dress like Alex Delage from Clockwork Orange, they may be implying their endorsement of his behavior. Now, for a lot of people who are into sort of censorship history and the subject of rape, Clockwork Orange is probably the biggest offender for many people and the one who's that's the most known.
Clockwork Orange is obviously, like I say, the big one. I mean, I think that's a reason why you got a lot of got a lot of controversies why Stanley Kubrick withdrew it from circulation and distribution in the UK. Let's just put that out there because everyone thinks that the BBFC banned it and said no, we didn't. We didn't even cut any of it. We passed it uncut with an X rating, much like it was in America, and just left it out. But then it had to be. But then Stanley Kubrick withdrew it due to all the backlash against it, only for it to be re-released after he died. Um, so yeah, but things are, there are times when you see certain films where they have like rape in, and it's not acknowledged as rape. Have you heard of a film or even seen uh, Revenge of the Nerds?
Yes, many years ago, I had the same problem. I didn't acknowledge it as sexual assault or harassment and rape. I just thought this is just edgy comedy, what was considered R-level comedy for back in the 1980s. I think that part of the problem is that it's the change in attitudes.
Well,
So,
possibly, but yeah.
mm,
Although I think there were probably quite a few people back then who actually did just sort of see and thought, wait, hang on a second. Didn't Lois just rape Betty? I mean, he had sex with her, but I mean, she technically consented, but she was consenting, believing he was someone else. So that's like, so that is just, yeah, complete. So that's just fucked up, considering God knows how many people just have just watched that, thinking it was just normal. It was just normal stuff, and thinking that's just a natural way to get stuck into a girl's pants is just to pretend to be someone else. Yes. And yeah, mind you, if you go by all these 80s teen movies or everything back then, it's just way too many problematic things. But anyways, because earlier in the film, they try to break into the girls' house, the sorority house, with the intention of planting cameras in there. And while that's not, well, it doesn't rape. I mean,
well,
not even be
that's
technically sexual assault. It's voyeurism and everything. It's done without their consent. So I think it's obviously, and it's in a sexual nature. So it could definitely be considered a sex crime, which, all intents and purposes, is, you know, in the same category.
no, it is. No consent means no play, as far as you're concerned.
Yeah.
There's been people who've
To
been
say
arrested
nothing.
for doing voyeurism. There's even that Family Guy episode where it looks like Quagmire was trying to peep in the woman's loo, and he saw Lois, and he was like, giggity, giggity. He was like, nah, and then he got arrested for it.
Mm.
And that was a
Well,
15, as most Family Guy
yeah.
episodes are, but they didn't mention sort of like sexual harassment or assault of voyeurism as a content ratings issue. Nowadays, they're a little bit more open to policing that sort of issue. And even, the two ones I mentioned earlier on, Watchmen, and then that anime I keep talking about, sexual violence is not mentioned as a ratings issue on the disclaimer. Not one bit.
Well, I was going to add, to say nothing of that scene in American Pie.
What happens in it, like I said,
Have you not seen American Pie?
I haven't seen it
Oh,
in a
right.
while.
Well, you must remember the infamous scene where Nadia, Shannon Elizabeth's character, goes around to uh, the main guy's house. Some Jim, played by Jason Biggs, goes around to his house and everything, and he sets up the webcam to spy on her, and she basically ends up getting changed in his room and everything. They're all just watching her without her knowledge via webcam, and of course I remember back then we were just laughing at everything, but looking at it now, it's just man, that's fucked up.
Well, it's
Especially when
definitely
you consider,
creepy, imposing
especially
behavior.
especially when you consider like when we skip to the next scene the next day, we find out, oh, she's been sent back home and everything. It's like, wait, she got spied on and voyeurism committed on her, and she's getting punished. That is that's
Well, that,
fucked up.
like Rob said, it is fucked up because she's not in the wrong. The people trying to install the camera and spyware, they're in the wrong. But bear in mind, a lot of comedies back then had an air of misogyny about them that we don't really like to sort of dwell on for the sake of nostalgia. Or, hey, it was funny there, but there was a lot of that was happening. And Me Too was not really a thing back then, and that really kick-started off the condemnation of inappropriate sexual behavior and harassment within workplace, particularly in the film and TV industry, to where many famous people will never be able to work again or at very reduced capacity, like Louis C.K., like Harvey Weinstein. He's the most famous one. He's currently in prison at Rikers Island in New York.
Rightfully
Um,
so.
Morgan Spurlock, even he's one of my heroes because he does Super Size Me documentary. He didn't even get profiled for it. He said, "I am part of the problem." He said he committed assault and he was a victim of rape himself, which, you know, some people who do that, because Kevin Spacey did that, he claimed he was a victim of assault. That isn't always the best excuse for then doing the same thing to someone. And Kevin Spacey can no longer work in Hollywood again. Baby Driver was the last big film he was in.
Yeah, well, I mean, you shouldn't go on sexually assaulting people. What can I say?
So, well, he was creeping up on a bunch of twinkie men in his time, and added to that because the homophobia, because he was outed as gay, that made people really turn against him. The only person who seems that none of that Me Too stuff happened that with backlash is obviously Donald Trump and
Oh,
Russell
Christ,
Brand.
yeah.
They're still around causing havoc, but we know what's up. You can't hide away forever.
And of course, another two films out. There's also, have you seen Animal House?
Yep, that was a double A film at the time, which I was always like, I thought it was an X when it first came out, but that was
Nah,
quite trivial in its depictions, and it had the usual misogyny they often had, like a lot of those films back then, where the woman was just nothing but a sex object; she was nothing but a hole. Porky's, which is from Canada, takes this even to a new level. That's the one I always
I
keep
haven't,
hearing is a
I
big
haven't seen
offender,
Porky's.
but Animal House does have its critics. Although the thing I
Yeah.
most remember about it was not so much the questionable sexual politics, was more so some of the racial stereotyping, and then the guy looked like Freddie Mercury with that mustache doing the.
Well, I'm just talking about the time when that guy's in bed and he's got the fresher girl next to him, just all blacked out, all passed out next to him, and of course the little devil just appears on his shoulder, goes, "You fucker, fucker, you do it," and then the angel comes up and tells him not to, and I think he ultimately doesn't. At least I fucking hope he doesn't. Yeah, and of course it's played for laugh, like it's just so tempting to just like assault this unconscious girl. So and again, we put that down to just older previous different time, just having lesser understanding of these sort of things. But still pretty cringe and creepy. But to go for a more recent one, have you seen Superbad?
Yep.
Well, of course, you look at Seth's plan. I think that's the name of Jonah Hill's character is Seth. I mean, look what his freaking plan is. It's essentially date rape. Get loads of alcohol, get Emma Stone's characters, whose name I can't actually remember, so fucking hell, super drunk, and then basically just, yeah, drunk enough to basically just have sex with them, basically. And I'm not saying if two people having drunk sex ultimately constitutes rape. I mean, context is a, you know, context is key here. But if you're deliberately getting someone drunk with the intention of basically lowering their inhibitions and hopefully that and increasing the chance that they'll basically just let you stick let you stick your dick in them, or it could be the other way around and all, but it is mostly guys that do this. Yeah, that is, well, even if it's not rape, it is fucking rapey.
No, it is. As far as love and relationships are concerned, everything should be mutual. Although oftentimes it's the man who's in charge, but it should be mutual, no matter what. But for the purposes of comedy, they like to exaggerate stuff, and sometimes that doesn't always necessarily mean it's right. Its portrayal should not necessarily mean its endorsement. That's a phrase I often keep hearing within censorship cases and contexts. It's well, but it does present a teenage power fantasy many boys have. I grew up at an all boys school, so I already know what a lot of the banter was like. Oh, I have a way with her. She can do me all she wants. And you almost think to yourself, like, well, what about her? What are her feelings? She might not want that. And then they'll say, how dare you? You're trying to criticize me, you're trying to demasculate me. You remember all that backlash about the Gillette ads? It came around me too, but it did not go very well because there was so much backlash against it saying it's anti men. How dare you accuse us of all being part of the rape culture?
The irony is that the more they sort of argue that, the more sort of proving their point. The
I mean, I really didn't like the backlash that it got because it just complicates things really because it's a company. I think it's owned by Procter and Gamble, Unilever. I was in charge, so that sort of like corporate morality washing doesn't it backfires because people will see right through it. On top of all the culture war stuff that was happening at the time, because it's Trump one, not Trump two, where a lot of that how was happening. I just thought, oh boy. But on sort of more contemporary grounds, I know even films can present their own issues as far as sexual violence is concerned. I know Poor Things recently, people thought that was rapey because the person had the intelligence and brain of a baby almost. It's just like, and it's more or less implied that men took advantage of her just because she was almost like a WAIF. I don't know if how you, wife, waif, like
wait,
a stupid
just
child almost. And baby
wait a
reindeer
second.
just
Wait a second. Right, I think I might have like lost the thread a bit here. Who are we talking about here?
we're talking about Poor Things. People said that was rapey
Oh, oh,
because they
oh, right.
thought a woman is being advantaged because her brain is almost like the size of a baby. Um,
That is quite disturbing when you think about it. If she's like got the intellect of a uh she's got the intellect of a child. Although I think like the whole point is that throughout the freaking without them throughout the movie, her brain basically advances at like an exponential rate, so it develops quicker. I don't really know, but it is worth pointing out that not only is when every sexual encounter with her is completely at her behest with her consent, and she's in control of it to, to everything. There is that going, but yeah, but it is a little bit freaking. Yeah, I mean, you can see where they're coming from. The fact that she's only just created like only what how long ago, and now she's like out there just shagging grown ass men and everything. Yeah, it does. Again, I can see where people are coming from.
well, it's a bit of a tricky one to sort of tell people about in public company until someone I was telling them about it and they thought, well, I'm a fan of it too. And I would have thought, but in my head, a woman can't like this movie because it's too sexual. It's for the male gaze. But I guess I was wrong, and I'm still friends with that person nonetheless. I was going to bring up the Baby Reindeer, which is a show, like we said earlier on, about female on male rape that's been getting a lot of backlash because of that
Getting a
element.
lot of well, it's been getting a lot of attention for this very reason because it like how accurately and how respectfully it deals with the subject matter, and it is spooking and disturbing. It's not like that, but intentionally so. When you start to realize, oh fucking hell! And of course, he's basing it his own experiences. He never named the person in question who did it. Although we're starting to get the impression it might be that Fiona Harvey woman who like came on Piers Morgan's show afterwards. But again, he never mentioned it. He never confirmed or denied it. So yeah, we don't know. But yeah, I mean, no bones about it. It doesn't pull any punches with its depictions of being stalked and you know, well, even assaulted by the his assailant, who happens to be female.
because I've never seen a single episode of the show itself, but that's the thing that sort of caught me by surprise. Because it's playing on issue that most people sort of dismiss it as, oh, that never happens, or hey, that's kind of funny. I think the Baby Reindeer has a sort of darkly comedic edge to it, which just complicate things a little bit more. Weirdly enough, to people who are listening, black comedies do exist that deal with sexual assault, namely Happiness, which I urge you not to watch, like Irreversibly, because it's just too disturbing. And one of the subplots about that involves a woman that's being raped and then murdered, and one of the big subplots involves a pedophile who's going about his business and tries to get around his son or his neighbor's son. It's very creepy. Please don't watch it. Even though
Which one
it's
just
certified
what did you say it was
18.
called again?
Happiness.
Would Oh, right. I probably wouldn't watch it. Speaking of film at 18, I just remembered something. Mm, of course, a big one example of when sexual assault became an issue. It was, of course, in Showgirls, which, as we know, was released uncut in America with an NC-17 rating because well, yeah, NC-17, which wasn't usually happened, but this time when it got it. It did. Came over to a BBFC and got an 18 rating, as was expected. There was a scene that had to be cut due to a rape.
No, that is very true. And this was for the UK market. In Ireland, it was banned initially. It surprised me, to say the least, given the NC-17 on it was already a bit of a hoopla. There was a lot of backlash about that. I've seen the film uncut, weirdly enough, as part of like a 30th anniversary. I saw it at The View, not too far from where I live. VUE. Oh, that scene still disturbs and upsets me. And because it was so violent, he was just punching and beating her like, oh, and also the fact that it's a white man raping a black woman also makes me uncomfortable. So I did not like that. It's
Well, I
also
can
not that
imagine you.
sexy of a film either. It's gross.
Well, no, I mean it. Well, it's a shit film, isn't it? I mean, let's face it. There's a reason why it won the Golden Razzie for Worst Picture that year. Yeah, it's not a good film. Let's not beat about the bush with that. And not Verhoeven's best work.
No, not compared to RoboCop, but for me, it's more interesting as
Or
far as the
Basic
film.
Instinct.
Well, I would say Showgirls has a bit more the upper hand, especially after seeing it again on the big screen. Weirdly enough, this is the first proper NC-17 film in a cinema I've seen, not accounting passages. So I was very marveled by that, but I was like, well, compared to RoboCop, no, but compared to Starship Troopers and The Hollow Man, it's even better than that. But that's just personal opinion.
Yeah, that's be because basically, I'm not saying Starship Troopers or Hollow Man are particularly good films or anything, but Showgirls is infamously shit. So I mean, again, again, probably off topic, but it's just what did I say? Hollow Man isn't exactly doing well on the tomato meter, and what is Starship Troopers? Yeah, 72%. Oh well. But then again, God knows what those overrated came up as. Okay. So that's Showgirls addressed. Obviously, while that scene was cut from initial shit initial release here, those cuts were waived from 2017 onwards, and now of course the film is uncut in the UK.
True there. What
Yeah,
I find a bit ironic, though, is they said, we can't show that, even if it's depicted as a horrible and bad thing. But they kept the Pulp Fiction rape scene that was involving two men, and there was a racism element directly, but they cut the drugs. And that drug
yeah, that
scene
was
with
weird.
the needle was waived, like, not too long ago, like less than 15 years ago. So I found that a bit peculiar because this was under Furmanism, and there was a bit of transition periods because every now and again Furman would slip up, like with Crash and Man Bites Dog, which also had a brutal rape scene that even ends with disembowelment. Like you see intestines and blood everywhere in the kitchen, And it looks like there's some sort of gang rape element involved. And that was a Belgian art house dark comedy satire about serial killer on the loose. I don't know what to say on something like that. Even natural born killers had attempted or rape and stuff involving that detective guy who was trying to have his way with Juliette Lewis. I don't get Furman
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's always interesting to look
Well,
at
he was
the
a weirdo.
oddballs.
Well, no, it's weirdo because he was always like really overly zealous. But one time he would say, "Oh, I'll let Crash go through, and I'll let that." What was he say it was called again?
Man bites dog.
Man bites dog. Yeah. So he let that go through, and I can always I always give him that and everything. Uh, Obviously, since he's left, and all else have said, "Yeah, well, obviously we're going to keep that being there and everything." Um, But yeah, I mean, I had to like cut Pulp Fiction on video for the injection scene, which has since been a cut that's since been waived and everything. But still, mind you, we didn't want the cut for at 18 for Under Siege 2, so I mean, let's not get too ahead of ourselves there. Oh, is he? I mean, maybe we should talk about the big one when it comes to sexual violence on film, by which, of course, I mean, I Spit on Your Grave.
That's a film that's never going to be released uncut anytime soon in the United Kingdom. I think even Last House on the Left is another one that they just will not permit. And
No, they have. No, Last House on the Left they have. That's been uncut since 2008.
I'm sorry, my apologies. I must be thinking of like a thriller because they've done a statutory classifications minutes report on a Swedish 70s film that inspired Kill Bill, weirdly enough. They had to still censor it because the rape scenes were too eroticized. But by that assessment, they could have still cracked down on Baise Moi, which I know you've got on DVD, and that's a really graphic film. I wouldn't show to anyone, let alone my grandmother, you, my auntie. Nope.
Well,
And it's got
I don't even have I don't, well, much like with Last House on the Left, I mean, because I don't have the uncut version of Baze Morgs. I got it in 2011, which was the original version, which Duval viewed, and he basically demanded cuts, just like he did with Last House on the Left. But then later on, after he'd left and Cook took over, he passed both those two films completely uncut. Last House on the Left in 2008 and Bazemore in 2013, I think.
No, I remember on the 18 section of the 2013 report, they did say we premiered it uncut for the first time, which I'm surprised it didn't get as much backlash as it did, because having seen Besmoir, I'm still quite mortified by it, the whole thing, because of even though it was made by two women, it's just some of the scenes could be interpreted as a bit like wank material, especially because there's so much scenes of unsimulated sex amidst even unsimulated rape, which that is probably the first film I've ever heard of that actually depicts penis on clitoris or genital contact. You actually see it in a sexual assault scene. The only other film I'm aware of that has that sort of thing is a film called Holiday. It's a Norwegian film from a few years ago. It was released by Anti Worlds Releasing, and that's a really graphic scene. Like we see all sex and ejaculation, and she's sort of beaten and gagged or something. This is played sort of medium shot. Like one of the people sort of comes down and is shot by what they're seeing and thought, oh, they're having sex. Nope, that was assault. There was no consent to that, so that's another film you should never watch with anyone, especially your auntie, your grandma, your ma, your sister, your daughter. No, don't watch it. Um, I think even Cannibal Holocaust, and that was a film that was horrifically controversial and even got into a legal trial and accused the people of committing murder when that was made and distributed. That's uncut, except for the animal abuse stuff, showing certain animals being cut up, and this is sort of played for like horror thrills. What's that other film? Malice Doll, that's an anime, weirdly enough. That actually is the only one of the few anime I'm aware of that actually depicts tentacle rape and was allowed to be shown in the UK. Because that has about like one or two scenes where it looks like a woman was impregnated or having tentacle thing stuck up her coochie, but you don't see explicit genital contact, but it's obvious what's going on. And then Demon Lover, not Demon Slayer, was a horror film from France that dealt with the hentai industry to some extent. It had Chloe Sevigny, weirdly enough. That had a scene that had unsimulated hentai tentacle rape involving like other fish as well, and I was like, can you legally show that? So they managed to slip up some stuff that even I wasn't aware of until just recently.
Well,
And then don't even get me started on The Kite Runner. That's a horrible 12A film that should have never been a 12A. That was a horrible film. Even at 15, it still raises questions because it's got some stuff that would be legally unacceptable under OPA or the Child Protection Act. It's PG-13 stateside. I could even consider the scene from Casino Royale sexualized violence because obviously Bond is being beaten in the testicles. But that seems more like a sort of action torture scenario, not so much. They didn't focus on the sexualization bit, but to me, it looked like Le Chiffre, the villain, was getting us some sort of gay
well,
thrill,
yeah.
beating him
Well, I
in the
think that's why they
testicles
did.
and
I
trying to
think
cut
that's
him.
why they did. Yeah, I know, Mark. I think that's why we did demand some cuts to get it down to a 12A rather than a 15. But good God, the difference between the cuts between a 12A and a 15 reel, so as I've mentioned before, so minimal that I don't see the point of them, to be honest. Um, but you know how earlier on we mentioned about how more conservative sort of places seem to be much more lenient on sexual assault than they do on regular consensual sex.
Yes.
Right. Have you seen the film Sucker Punch?
No. I regret missing out on that, but I'm aware there's a rated R and a PG-13 version, and there's a lot of scenes of sort of sexualization and the threat of
Well,
men
that's
having their way
okay.
with women
Right. Well, I'll get to.
brothel.
Right. Well, okay. Well, there's one scene at the end that made which was a difference between its PG-13 and R rating, and it basically involves the character Baby Doll, played by Emily Bunting, I think, having sex with a guy, and basically in the original version, she's completely consenting to it, and that's what the MPAA took umbrage with. They said, "Oh, we can get it down to PG if it looks like she's not consenting and more like doing it against her will and everything." And it's just that that is that is so fucked up.
Oh,
That
absolutely. What? What? That that doesn't make any sense because most people are traumatized by rape scenes, not so much sex scenes. Because you know how people go freak out when there's a sex scene when they're watching it with their parents. I think of rape scenes, that's more just as a whole for anyone, especially women. They don't like that.
well, yeah, well, that's what's so weird. I mean, a lot of people were saying to me, I mean, a lot of the cast was saying that this is the main issue of the MPAA, just saying you're so fucked up for like demanding. You could say in order to get a lower rating, you had to make it look like the sex was non-consensual rather than being consensual. That is just so again, that's so messed up. Uh,
Beyond messed up, that
but
that doesn't make any sort of logical sense to me
I
in
know
our head.
because the BBFC would basically have done it the exact opposite way round, which makes much more sense. But I mean, I just thought I'd throw that out there as a tidbit. Of course, on the subject of I Spit in Your Grave, as I brought up earlier, um, we've had a remake of that film and a sequel to it. In fact, if you look it up on Wikipedia, if you've got the look at the film series on Wikipedia now, we've had a.
I'm
Sorry, what we?
aware there is
Yeah,
remade versions of that
yeah.
film,
There's a re.
um,
Yes, yes. There's a
and it
re. There's a. Case you, hey, Mark, you got the original version from 1978. You got the remake in 2010. The sequel to remake in 2013, another sequel to it in 2015, and then you've got a sequel to the original film from 2019. And funnily enough, I don't know if it's because the BBFC have become better at this, or just because the filmmaker producers, were sort of keeping it knew just how to keep it within the sort of keep it within what's going to be allowed. But both the third one in the remake trilogy and the sequel to the original films are basically the two most latest films are the only ones that the BBFC have passed completely uncut.
That is true. That is one of the things I find to some extent a bit ironic because you would have thought they would have went in a little bit hard on the newer versions more so than the older versions, but I don't always get them sometimes. But I know for a lot of people back then, rape scenes were still a big no-no. Um, well, a lot of it was the 70s. There was just too much of it, especially with stuff like Straw Dogs, which got into a lot of trouble to where the original version made it seem like she was enjoying it, but the uncut version made it seem like it was punishment, or vice versa. They just complicated the consent nature of it, and some people, even if it was meant to be depicted as wrong, still got a thrill seeing it. I'm just like, I don't know how you could explain something like that. Straw Dogs is one of Sam Peckinpah's best films, better than The Wild Bunch, but it's still very problematic more than 50 years later. And it's also one of the films that caused the downfall of Stephen Murphy, who was before James Furman, because he also worked on Clockwork Orange as well, and Death Wish.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, yeah, oh, of course, yeah, Death Wish. That had a very grim sexual assault scene done right at the beginning, didn't it?
It
Because
did. It
yeah,
was
that.
Jeff Goldblum, weirdly enough. He's and calling
Oh
her a
no,
rich cunt. I hate rich cunts. Using foul language like that in the 70s film.
oh yeah, makes you what? Part of me makes you wish. Sorry, wish? I don't know, wish anything. I think it's what I said. Part it makes you wonder if basically the main cause for the cut it was for him saying that bad language rather than the actual sexual assault. I
It
mean,
wouldn't put it past me. We do have a bit
especially
of a
not back then. Especially not back then. No.
we do have still a finicky attitude towards very strong language, even if it's maybe less so. I've seen Better Man. That's got like 10 uses of the C word out of 15. But back then, you never really heard the C word out loud like that, especially if it was misogynistic in the way that he said it, which is the more offensive version. But then again, at the same time, you could even say the N word in a U certificate film. So I don't know where our priorities lie. And blasphemy was still out banned until 2008. I'm gonna.
Although, I I think Virtual Death Wish might have been uncut at the cinema, but just cut at on video originally before it became uncut. I mean, again, I don't know and everything, but yeah. Also, talking of Straw Dogs, I think was Last Tango in Paris have a rape scene? I have no idea.
Oh, it does.
Not
You
seen either of
remember
them.
Butter? Marlon
Oh, that
Brando
was the one with the
threatens
butter and everything.
Butter.
I get that and Straw Dogs so mixed up. I can't remember which one's which.
No, they're two different films. Straw Dogs is fully set in Cornwall, weirdly enough. Probably near
Mm.
Bodmin Moor, one of your novels. La Tango is obviously set in France, and it was made by Bertolucci. And that caused a lot of scandal, wish of the filmmaker himself, not so much Marlon Brando, but it just seemed like she was forced to do it, and it was traumatized for her, and she never worked in the industry quite to the capacity like she did on that film ever again. So as we were saying about Last Tango, that the butter scene is in that film, and let's just say it caused a big scandal because of it. And still, Bertolucci has never really been fully like prosecuted or investigated on the basis of it. But we did see on that Mary Whitehouse documentary at your place one time where in some respects, she was proven right about men taking advantage of women in such a way, and then that shows up. So a bit weird because Mary Whitehouse is the face of conservative Britain. Conservatives generally don't have a positive attitude towards women's rights or their own bodily
Well, to
autonomy.
be honest, I don't think Mary Whitehouse did either, seeing as she was friends with Phyllis Schlafly.
Well, there you go. Selective in how they want to say it, or they
Mm.
say we're doing it for the women, we're doing it for the children. But are they? I could go into that debate
Well,
for
I mean,
quite a few whiles, but as a
yes.
man, I don't feel I have an executive authority to speak up on this issue. I can speak up on men's issues, men's rape, but that's it. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't think Mary Whitehouse will. Saying Mary Whitehouse was right, I think is no, she wasn't. I mean, let's face it, issues of rape are always going to be a trouble and everything. I mean, I don't think, but of course they shouldn't be censored. They should just so they should just you just put a warning on the film and you say, hey, this film contains all this fucked up shit, and then just let them in. Or if you want a lower rating, you just cut it out. But of course, okay, well, you have a 15 if you cut it out, and you leave it in, you get an 18, your choice and everything. Obviously, we're gonna have all the stuff in there. If we don't, I mean, um, oh fuck. Hang on a second, what was that goddamn phone on again? Thanks. 1 second, please. I will be as quick as I can.
I'm more than happy to wait. Is it
Uh,
a more recent
no,
film
no,
or an
blink
older
twice,
film?
blink twice, blink twice,
Well, that
blink twice. That
well
was,
that one
yeah.
we both. I saw it in the cinema just like you did, but unfortunately, we're at my screening at the Curzon in London. Um, they didn't have a disclaimer before the film commenced and after the black card. We just got the black card that stated sexual
Really?
violence.
Well,
Yeah.
bizarre. There's
Uh,
a trigger warning. I thought it was part of the actual movie or something. I didn't think it. Maybe just the cinema just put it on there.
no, we didn't get the trigger warning, unfortunately, or what I call a disclaimer, and I was a bit upset by that because I was like, I really wanted to see it just for that very reason. So I had to rely on people's sort of camera shots, which I know is illegal. You can't be taking film and photo of video screenings in cinemas, but that had to suffice. And your testimony, on my opinion on that one, I felt like I was veering on 18 territory because you can't have rape revenge films at the lower category. But then again, Promising Young Woman was a 15, and a lot of that was more or less implied. But there was a lot of discussions about rape culture, and as far as I'm concerned, that made for quite disturbing viewing and required an adult mindset.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but again, I think it's handled pretty well. And again, you don't see any of the rape, and you don't really see any of that in Blink Twice. So maybe some like flashes or something, but there's not. It's not like it's not what you call sorry, it's not lingered on or anything. Like I'm guessing this. I haven't seen Messenger film with about Joan of Arc with Mila Jovovich in, which apparently has quite a protracted rape scene, hence why it's been bumped up from 15 to 18. But again, never seen it, so I can't actually comment.
The clip is available
Hence,
on
but
YouTube. I've seen the clip in isolation, and it's horrible. There is no explicit nudity, but it's horrible, not pleasant to watch. But I would
I
err on
imagine it.
the side of caution on the 15, perhaps because of that historical element. But I know sometimes even historical content and context does not always justify certain material at lower categories. Hence, for this very reason, why Rob Roy was given 18 initially because of the rape stuff, but they lowered it to 15 many years ago. But then with the Messenger Joan of Arc, it was inverted. They even did this with a John Singleton film that I'm also a fan of called Higher Learning. Higher Learning was fine at
Wait,
15.
wait, Rob Roy, the film from 1995 with Liam Neeson in.
Yes, there was a rape. And
That's
he got
always that. That's always been a 15, albeit well, with cuts and everything. I think it's only been past uncut well from 2012 onwards. At least that's according to the uh BBFC website.
It's just from my research from what they stayed on, because I was talking about films of historical context or themes. It could be accurate, but it's just through what I was saying about that Joan of Arc film that you told me. When I first heard about the upgrade, I thought that is very unusual. because you get away with a lot of stuff in a 15 film to where you even have stuff like Compliance, which I know I've talked about on several occasions, which is a 15 film that's pretty much nothing but sexual assault scenes and humiliation where a woman's told to strip, she's being spanked, she has to do oral sex, and she doesn't none the wiser. She thought, she's on a prank call, like, what is this? And she takes it as just on face value, not knowing that someone is doing it for kicks and to humiliate her while she's working at a fast food place. So it's a legal drama in some respects, but the way it's depicted is just disturbing and very creepy. And then, usually on the American side of things, there's a film called Teeth, which was about a teenage girl who has a killer vagina. I know it sounds very crass, and that got
Yeah, I've seen that.
rated R rating uncut, and I thought they're gonna butcher this to death. Nope, R rating uncut, despite having quite graphic scenes of genital mutilation and the threat of rape throughout the sort of whole film. I don't
Also an
know how
MA
to say
15
about that.
plus, almost an MA 15, also an MA 15 plus in Australia. So yeah, that raises some questions.
As far as I'm concerned, it does, because I know, well, Australia can sort of be either here or there when it comes to sort of sexual assault content. The Nightingale was 18, like uh, Messenger Joan of Arc film. It was a historical drama set during colonial Australia when they sent prisoners down there from England, and it had some horrible, like, four rape scenes. A lot of them quite graphic and prolonged, and one of them involving racist rape of a white colonial officer having his way with an Aboriginal woman or Torres Strait Islander. It's a horrible movie. Great, very powerful, but don't watch it. You'll want to kill yourself or start doing like a Tyler Robinson on people if you watch it.
I will keep that in mind and everything. Yeah, I think well,
But that's why rape revenge
uh,
films are so powerful. Even the milder ones, like Promising Young Woman, which its teeth is sunk, but not too much. And then you got the more hardcore stuff like Thriller from Sweden, and then Bays Noir, which that's already a dark cloud all over us as far as we're concerned. It's not an
yeah.
easy subject to touch on rape and sexual assault content because it's omnipresent. And for people who may be, thinking about like the facts and figures, people are most likely to be a victim of these sort of sexual aggressions from people who they know closest to. It doesn't always just come from weird strangers or illegal migrants who are trying to come in your neighborhood. It often is most cases coming from people who know closest to you. So be very careful of the uncle who's a bit too keen looking at your daughter.
Yes.
So for people, men, I'm speaking to like the Joe Rogan, Andrew Tate types who may be listening to this, thinking, "Hey, he's speaking for us." If you're so curious to have your way with someone, just read a manga. Just don't harm anyone. That's why it's such a very touchy issue, to where even video games, because I know Hotline Miami was banned for that sort of thing in Australia, usually don't touch on this issue. They may depict it sort of in reference, but it's very fleeting. But then again, you got stuff like Custer's Revenge, which was a very early arcade game that was made for the porno market, and that was pretty much a white colonial officer having his way with a native woman, and that lots of problems with that one. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I put it on the thumbnail for the video games podcast that we did, because it caused a shitstorm when it came out.
Well, yeah. I understand. Well, yeah. Obviously. Um, I was just weird because I remembered I've heard on the subject of just how insidious rape is. I mean, well, the fucked up reasons why people do it. Obviously, it's always a fucked up reason to do it, but I've heard stories of like porn stars being accused of rape by like other porn stars. It's like, why would you feel the need to rape someone if you're a porn star? Like, you're already having sex with them and you're getting fucking paid for it. Why do you feel the need to go and insult them? Like, it's the same with like with people who have raped prostitutes. It's like, dude, they're already agreeing to have sex with you just in exchange for money. Why?
Well,
Just
that I don't
fucking hell,
understand
man.
either. I don't understand it either. If it's to me, that sounds like they want a power trip over them. They felt
I
like,
know.
well, I'm not
Well,
compensated enough.
yeah, that's the point, Mark. It is basically just about power, and it's not about it's never been about sex. It's always been about power and dominance, and that's all it's ever been.
Exactly.
That's just what's so fucked up.
And I just can't justify, even if you are one of us on
Well,
the
who the hell
side, like the
would?
left. There's you can't really justify someone having their way with someone's daughter because they feel like they've been bereaved. And to those people who feel like they're so inclined to have their way with someone that they would even touch a little boy in Thailand because they're trying to get rid of their pedophilic impulses. What I tell them, like I would tell the Joe Rogan and Andrew Tate people, just look at manga. I think, in my opinion, manga, Japanese comic books, are the best resource for sexual aggression and sort of rapey thoughts because you can
Or
just
just,
look at it instead of having to act it.
or just watch some porn and just wank yourself off, and then hopefully I should purge any sort of stupid, fucked up thoughts you have. Although to be fair, I don't know. But then,
Well, the
I got no idea. I mean, I don't know what goes through these dickheads' minds.
well, the problem with pornography, and I've probably hinted at this on the previous one that we did, it uses real people, and there's room for exploitation and pimping.
Well,
With
that's why you got to
sort of
be make sure it's properly regulated.
manga and comic books, it's all illustrated in the mind of one person. So that's why I don't have as much of an offense to tentacle rape. I know that sounds pretty horrible to say, than I do with, let's say, like actual rape or sexually aggressive behavior. I know that sounds wrong for me to say, but
Yeah, a little
would you
bit.
be more
Well, I
offended
say a
by
little, but
in the real world sort of stuff than what's going on for like just an illustrated image? It's maybe indecent and illegal. There is one film I wanted to ask about before we finish things. Is One
mm.
Battle After Another.
Oh, yeah.
I know that's not really a rape film, but to me, it does hint at elements of that are quite unnerving for me because it deals with racial
It's an abuse.
fetishism.
Yeah, but I know. Well, there's that, but there's also just the whole abuse of power. I mean, don't want to give any spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, but there is one character who's in a position of power, a clear got position of power of someone else, and does use it for sexual purposes. So there is that. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, it's very obviously made. The film makes it very clear that that's what they're doing, and of course is condemning of it. And the guy who does it is clearly the car is a carbon copy, cardboard cop out, cardboard cutout bad guy. So there's not a there's no obscurity regarding to whether or not to where they stand on, or no ambiguity as to whether or not the film stands on this issue. Finally got the words out properly. Um, so yeah, that's a good film. It can it sends a good message, I think overall. Um, well, more or less. It's very obvious what message it's set, anywhere whose side it's on. So yeah, I mean, I don't really put it in the context of films that talk about sexual assault because it's not so egregious and in your face with it. Um,
Well, I thought to bring it up
yeah.
because there is a giveaway spoiler at the end where can I give spoilers on this program?
Well, you can, but
I'll
I
put
just said no spoiler. No,
timestamps.
it's just Mark. I just said no spoilers on it. So I mean, uh, yeah, I've just make sure in case anyone listening, all three of them, um, still want to see the film.
Okay, well, uh, in that case, I'll say no more further, other than don't let the film get banned in the US because it promotes left-wing extremism in a sort of Weathermen, Bader Meinhof context. And in many respects, that one character Sean Penn plays reminds me a lot of Claude Frollo. He had a bit of a thing for the swirl. He liked black women, and then he starts um, what's the word? Gaslighting them when it doesn't go his way, or he's sexually conflicted, and that as far makes me a bit uncomfortable given personal experiences. So that's why I brought it up in that sort of context because it does have references to sexual violence in the disclaimer. It's not graphic, but verbally and sort of conceptually, it could disturb a lot of people, especially conservatives. Until then, I think I've said enough. I mean, I could have gone down to the long stream of Japanese animation that is quite disturbing and has rape. I know
What about then? We'll be here all day.
Perfect Blue particularly has no tentacles. That's just rape itself, including a scene where a person is stabbed to death, and you see brief shots of a naked lady, with her pubic hair out and stuff. And I'm like, what on earth is this? They're actually going to play it between the 12th to the 13th of October in select cinemas as part of her anniversary. So I'm going to be there to see it. But just for people who are listening, it's very disturbing. Um, but it's realistic, not like Elfin or Speedgraph or any of those. And it's 18, so no kids allowed. Worse than South Park. Um, uh, yeah, I'm not going to say any further. I think this topic is too heavy for any sort of jokes and banter. Even with the ones we talked about, like with Brarsai or the baby reindeer. But I'm going to end this. And do you have any last requests or thoughts?
No, I think we've wrapped everything up. Well, I've covered as much as we could. Um, yeah. Obviously, I mean, yeah, sexual assault is a some fucked up shit. It's horrendous crime. Uh, just more we can do to combat it, and just educate people better on it, so they know not to do it in the future. Then the better.
That will take a long time because, as we've seen with the rise of far right populism and people want to ban abortions, and even with COVID, where a lot of people were locked up in their houses and increased rates of domestic violence and sexual abuse were occurring, we're not looking for a very good time these next 5 years. In fact, it's going to get really, really, really ugly. And even if there is World War III, there'll be more rapes to come, as we've seen with Russian soldiers targeting Ukrainian women because, well, I'm lonely. I need some company. At the mercy of the gun. Be terrified. Until then, I've said enough. Please don't kill us. Even though Charlie Kirk is dead, they could very well target us. Good night, everyone.
No, no.